Today, Nikon's new 400 4.5S. I've had the joy of working with this for the past few weeks. It's ultra light, balanced, amazingly sharp, fun lens. We'll go through some images. We'll look at it with teleconverters on and off compared to some other lenses like my 100 to 400S, as well as maybe unfairly the 400 2.8 exotic S lens. Fun stuff. There's not much not to like about this little guy. Well, hey everyone, Hudson here. I feel like with this new 400mm lens, Nikon just thickened the plot of the Z system. You know, there are so many options now at 400. We've gone from having sort of nothing except through the FTZ adapter for long lenses to all these new options. And this 400 is a pretty sweet one. I'm gonna spend a little time in this video going through images from it and the other longer S lenses that are available. We'll look at image quality with and without teleconverters, and we'll talk about the things that I love about this lens, and I'll struggle to come up with a couple of things I think could be improved. Despite all that, I'm not personally keeping this lens. I'll explain why, and I'll give you some options for different lens kits that I think make sense for different kinds of shooters. You know, we're gonna talk about the 400 2.8 for those exotic, you know, super specialist bird, low light, long lens aficionados with the cash to get it. We'll talk about the 800 PF that I use and love. This 400, the 100 to 400, there's all these different options. The 70 to 200, teleconverters, non-teleconverters. It's a fun game right now in the long lens world of the S class, and we'll look at a lot of images along the way. Before we do that, I want to remind everyone, office hours, Tuesday, September 6th, 10 a.m. Pacific, big group get together for free on Zoom and YouTube Live. We're going to talk about night photography, both Milky Way and Moon stuff. We'll talk about stacking, trackers, all kinds of fun stuff. Join us, sign up at hudsonhenry.com/office hours, and you can leave a question when you sign up. You know, we'll try to get to those questions about night photography before other questions, but feel free to ask any photographic question. All right. Also, I'm going to be talking about a lot of gear in this video. Links to all that stuff are at my site at hudsonhenry.com/ATS links. Those links really help me out with my photo education work, along with the custom tripods that I build and the case filter sets that I sell in individual filters. We'll be talking about this adaptability to case filters and tripods and feet and other stuff along the way. Also, quick little highlight, I got a new Eyecup for the Z9. I put out a hack to use a Z6, Z7 Eyecup with the Z9 and its original ring. This new one from Hoodman is really nice. It's finally available and it's cheaper than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to put a link in this video to this cup. You can spin it around for right or left-eyed use. It's a nicer cup and it's only 30 bucks, which is a bit of a surprise to me, and they have it in stock at B&H. So I'm putting a link in this video's description and also, of course, on my ATS links site about it. So let's jump in, talk about some of the things that I love about this lens, why I'm not keeping it, look at some images, talk about some of the other lenses, and really delve into all things long lens S system. All right, so what do I love about this 400mm lens? Well, you know, number one's image quality. We're gonna talk about that in a second. We're gonna go through images, but it is sharp. It's sharp, wide open. It focuses fast. It's got a great image quality. Stellar, in fact, just like we could come to expect from all of these new S-line Z lenses, actually all of the new Z lenses. Number two is its weight. This thing's lighter than the 70 to 200 S lens. It's lighter than the 100 to 400, obviously. It's a really lightweight lens, and the weight is balanced in the back so that it's really easy to handle. You know, I had this in my Portland workshop. You'll see some images I captured during that. And the universal comment from every Nikon shooter that I handed it to was, whoa, this thing's light. I like the fact that it has the exact same lens foot mount as the 70 to 200 and the 100 to 400 that I carry, so that you can use an aftermarket foot like Kirk's awesome Arca foot and snap it right in there. And then that gives you access to things like the QD port connector. It's nice not to have to buy a bunch of feet. The fact that one foot works with the 70 to 200, the 100 to 400, and the new 400. Really nice thing. So size, weight, image quality, that's where they just knocked it out of the park. Usability, you know, it's got function buttons on it, it's got a memory set button, and then you can program the outer buttons to realign you on that set focus point. Lots of cool stuff with this lens. It just handles really, really well, fits in your bag well, doesn't put too much weight on your back. What are a couple of things like, oh, you know, one more thing I love about it, 95mm filter thread, same as the old 500 PF. That lets me really easily use my 112mm filter kit, which is a great kit for Nikon users because with this HB97 hood, you can put 112mm, I like my case magnetic ring, you can drop that magnetic ring in here and just drop filters into this hood, which then mount right to the 14 to 24 2.8, the 14 to 30 f4, the 24 to 70 f2.8, the 70 to 200 2.8, and with adapter rings you can put it on anything else, including, you know, I can just simply put a 95mm adapter ring on the front of that lens. Click, I got my 112mm filters, 6 of which fit in this little case. So, you know, the fact that it can share the most sensible filters for the Nikon aficionado that has a bunch of lenses, it's really, really nice. I think a 95mm filter thread, you know, if you're shooting 112mm filters, it's great. If you're shooting 82mm filters, well, this is that thing that I constantly say can happen where suddenly you've got a new lens you want that's bigger than your current filter set. That's one reason I shoot with 112s. That and the fact that I love to use these on the 14 to 24 with this HB97 hood. All right, so now to a couple things I'm not so happy about. You know, I've heard a lot of, these are minor. A lot of people complaining about it. It's just standard amongst most of the camera brands and certainly of Nikon. This little tripod foot that comes with it is, you know, it's got 2 1/4-20 thread mounts, which lets you at least secure an ARCA plate to it well. But it would be nice if they'd just include a nice ARCA plate. You're gonna wanna go for a aftermarket plate. I'll put a link to this lens as well as this really nice Kirk foot in this video's full description. You just click on the title to show more, or it's over at my website at hudsonhenry.com/ATS links we talked about earlier. The other thing is the price. You know, it's $3,250. So, you know, that's not out of line for a really high-end lens like this. It's right in sync where the 500 PF was in the F-mount days. It's a fabulous lens. I think the value is certainly there, but you know, it'd be nice if it were cheaper, just like anything else. So just a fantastic lens. It works very well with the teleconverters, both the 2.0 and the 1.4. I think it's a little better with the 1.4. It loses a little bit of quality with the 2.0. We'll look at images. Slows the focusing down a little bit, just like I complain about with the 100 to 400. You know, I think the 2.0 is really built for, you know, lenses on the 400 2.8 caliber. There are very few lenses that handle that 2.0 with ease. Still, it works well. We'll look at images and we'll compare images with my 800 PF to this lens with the 2.0 teleconverter on it, and the 100 to 400 with the 2.0 teleconverter on it. And you can probably guess how that's gonna work out. Yeah, so I guess the big question for a lot of you is if I like so many things about this lens and it's so great, why am I not personally keeping it? And just for my style of shooting and who I am, it makes more sense for me to have the 800 on standby for wildlife and this 100 to 400, which is so flexible for me as a largely landscape and travel shooter. We'll talk about it, it's versatility for me. But I think there's certainly the use case for a lot of people. I'm going to talk about some recommended kits after we take a look at image quality for different types of shooters on different types of budgets. 2 more little items I forgot, a pro and a con. So let's go with the con first. First of all, it doesn't come with a good carry case like we used to get, you know, with the 500 PF or the old 70 to 200. That just is kind of across the board with the Z lenses, except for the 400 2.8S, the $14,000 lens, or the 800 6.3 that I love. I guess you have to spend up over $5,000 to get a carry case for them anymore, and that's a bummer. I used to really love those dual zipper Nikon carry cases that fit this lens so well. If you can find one for the 500 PF or sell your 500 PF without its original case, it fits really nice in there. Pro tip. The other thing is this really nice reversible hood. It's got a positive push button mechanism. It's sturdy, it's well built. It's nice and sort of soft, dark lined fits the camera really well, doesn't weigh very much. So great hood, no case. All right, let's jump into images. All right, so let's jump in and have a little closer look through images at where this lens really shines, aside from its lightweight and form factor, and that's image quality. And we'll compare it to some of the other options that you have for longer lenses in the Nikon Z native world right now. All right, so let's just dive in here. I've got a bunch of images I captured with this. I've been shooting with it for the last few weeks, both with my family, as well as on the Portland workshop. And I've done some tests, and my good friend Charlie Johnson down in Port Orford, who's done a lot of work with me, has done some tests with his version of it. He has both the 1.4 and the 2.0 teleconverter. I have the 1.4 teleconverter, and I've shot a lot with that, and I've been blown away by it. And then one of the people, my good friend Tobe on the Portland workshop, loaned me her 2.0 to do some kind of comparisons between the 100 to 400 with the 2.0, this new 400 or 4.5, and my 800 PF, my big dog lens. So without further ado, let's just jump in. We'll have a look. I went for a little walk through a wildlife refuge late in the day with my family. My little boy Pike, and Pepper love to be in his videos. Pike, just getting ready for first grade, is already shooting pretty great photos with the Nikon Z50. I may have to do a video about that before too very long. My little girl Pepper is super creative. This lens, you know, I think if we have a look at these images, you don't think of a 400mm lens as a great portrait lens, but this thing is sharp, has nice fall off in the focus. We were out there with Pike and Pepper's grandma, my wife's mom, just a wonderful mother-in-law. A guy couldn't get any luckier. From Florida, and my Aunt Denise, and just walking around the wildlife refuge, and you can see, I mean, you get every eyelash and detail and reflection. You know, you get far enough back, you can actually do some sort of, you know, candid portrait shots of people with this lens that's really nice. I didn't get great wildlife opportunities on this trip, but it did let me compare a little bit the bare lens versus the 100 to 400. This is certainly not a portfolio shot of a blue heron at the wildlife refuge in this murky, swampy water, but I think you see this is at straight up 400mm, wide open at 4.5, and then that heron was staying still and let me jump on with the 1.4 teleconverter on, and I think you can see we don't have any fall off in sharpness. This is still wide open at 6.3 with the 1.4 teleconverter. Nice and sharp. I just left it on there a fair bit. You know, here was a raccoon. We're still at 100% view here. A raccoon going through the muck, very dirty raccoon. Again, not a portrait shot, but it lets you get a feel for, you know, shooting this thing with the 1.4 teleconverter on it. Again, at 6.3 here. Nice sharp rendering with that 1.4. It makes me not hesitate to use it. Here we're back to 400, doing a little bit more portraits of Peppy and her grandma. And you know, then I've taken it kiteboarding. One thing I've been doing over the last few weeks is getting some time on the river in decent wind. This is my good friend Jasmine's pup, who comes out kiteboarding with us a fair bit. I think you can see we're seeing every little bit of sand detail. This is at 560 with that 1.4 teleconverter on it again. Image quality, sharpness, fantastic. Even with the 1.4 teleconverter, you're getting a nice fall off, great sort of just sharpness, especially right in the eye. I love the way that the Z9, all these shots are with the Z9, by the way. I love the way the Z9 just does that eye detect. And then out, you know, photographing my friends. This is a beach called Jones where we kite on the Columbia River. This is looking across from Oregon to the Washington side to the north. You can see nice and sharp. My friend Miguel ripping it up out there on his 7-meter kite and his foil. Here he is coming into a turn, and I think, you know, that says it all about image sharpness with the 1.4 teleconverter on this lens. We're out at 560. 6.3, look at the water droplets coming off of his hand as he makes this turn on his foil. Let's get out there in some brighter light, see how color rendition is. This is at Sauvie Island, kind of my home beach. My good friend Matt foiling on a beautiful day. My good friend Walker, followed by my friend Luis back there on a twin tip. I think you can see sharp. These are without the teleconverter, wide open f4.5. No issue with sharpness Here's my friend Lior, hamming it up with the new hot thing in town, which is riding a wing foil, not with a kite, actually holding on to a wing in the wind and foiling on a bigger board. Here's Luis doing some tricks on his twin tip. Here's Lior hamming it up. Once again at 400 millimeters. He's filling my frame. This is uncropped. I was trying to keep him in the frame, but look at the sharpness. Again, wide open, 4.5. That's pretty nutty. Plenty sharp. You can see that he's almost as in need of a shave as I am. Little inside joke there. Here's what it looks like in a foil crash. Tracking action is no issue with this lens on the Z9. So, okay, image quality. Clearly not much of an issue with this lens. It's small, it's light, it's razor sharp, works great with the 1.4 teleconverter. What about the 2.0? So before I got a hold of the 2.0 teleconverter during the Portland workshop, I had my good friend Charlie Johnson down in Port Orford do a little test. He was shooting sunflowers. He moved with the different teleconverters to kind of keep them about the same size in the frame. So this is the 400-4.5, just wide open. Obviously, we know it's sharp, not an issue there. Here he's put the 1.4 teleconverter on it, f6.3, 400, you see, still very sharp. Maybe there's a slight drop in sharpness. Let's bounce back and forth. Not much though, plenty sharp. Then he throws the 2.0 teleconverter on, and I think you can see there's a little softening. It's not bad, it's still more than acceptable, but maybe not quite as sharp as without it. So then he kind of wondered, what if I stop down from f9, which is going to be your widest aperture when you put that 2.0 teleconverter on the 4.5, to f11. And I think that sharpness bounces right back. Now we're getting much more into the same detail and sharpness we got with the 1.4. And again, you know, that wide open with just itself, any lens is going to perform better without a teleconverter on it. This lens is spectacular, bare. You know, teleconverters accompany a slight loss in sharpness, just generally. I mean, you can get great results, don't get me wrong, and I use the teleconverter all the time myself. But, you know, a slight loss in sharpness. Now, you know, I think a really important test is the 100-400 zoom lens versus this 400 millimeter 4.5 lens. Now the 100-400 is lighter, it's a bit cheaper. It's not lighter, the 400 is lighter, the 100-400 is cheaper, but what it is for me is a bit more versatile. But you know, let's look. I had someone ask me to take images with this lens at infinity, and because they heard someone say it wasn't sharp at infinity, which that seems shocking to me. I think you've seen it's plenty sharp at just about everything. So I was out with my workshop photographing a full moon rise with Mount Hood, my Portland workshop with Rick LePage and a wonderful group of photographers. This is shot with the 100-400. I think I stopped down to f8. Nice, you know, I haven't done any post-production sharpening. It's plenty detailed and sharp, especially since there's a slight amount of haze and cloud playing through the scene. A few moments later, a little bit more light on the scene, the 400. I think it's a bit sharper, but I also think the atmospherics were clearing up. Neither one of these give me any pause. I mean, the 400 is really sharp. Now I stopped it down a little bit here too, but super sharp. I thought when the moon came up, and I'll show you the photo of the mountain with the moon later, but when the moon came up, it was an interesting opportunity to pit both of those lenses against each other. So here's 560 with the 100-400 Z lens, zoomed into 100%. We're at f8 again. The moon's nice and sharp. Let's have a look at it. Same moon with the 400 millimeter and the 1.4 teleconverter, sort of a teleconverter to teleconverter look. Both of these images, there's nothing to complain about. You have a look. Maybe the 400's a little tiny bit sharper, but nothing I couldn't rectify with a little post-production sharpening. Pretty great. Pretty darn awesome. I decided to do a little test with the 100-400, the 400, the new 400-4.5, and the 800 with the 2.0 teleconverter when I realized my good friend Tobe had her 2.0 teleconverter with us. in our workshop, and we were at Silver Falls State Park, and I focused on this little bit of, you know, fluff, or I don't know exactly what it is, on the branch of this Doug fir tree, with this mossy branch fading out and then some blowing leaves out there to kind of look at the bokeh. And this is at 800 millimeters with the 100 to 400, the lens that I have in my kit all the time, with a 2.0 teleconverter. And as I found when I did the lens tests with this lens, shooting brick walls and such, you know, I didn't think it was as sharp with the 2.0 teleconverter as I might like. That's one reason why I don't have one. I have a 1.4. I find it plenty sharp with the 1.4. You know, the background's not terrible. Let's have a look with the 400, the new 400 4.5. So here's your new 400 4.5. You can tell it's sharper with the 2.0 teleconverter on it already. Pretty darn sharp. There's your 2.0. You know, I think if I had this lens, I would have the 2.0 teleconverter and I would use it. I think you're seeing that both in the sunflower shots that Charlie Johnson took with it, as well as this bark shot with the out of focus background. You know, the bokeh could be better, it could be smoother, it could be a little more pleasing, but it's plenty sharp and plenty usable. Now let's have a look at what the image looks like with my 800 PF. So we're looking at 800 versus 800 versus 800, and you can see that background's more blown out, more blurred, more pleasing. It's sharper yet. You know, you just can't beat a dedicated prime with no teleconverter on it. So, you know, run through it one more time. We'll look at the 100 to 400 focused on this guy. We'll look at the 400 4.5, and then we look at the 800 PF in its native 800 state. You know, just that's a beautiful lens, but it's a big, heavy beast that you're not going to be carrying all the time. So not particularly versatile. I find that the 800 PF works great with the 1.4 teleconverter as well. And that puts it at an 1120, which is awesome when the bear is on the ridge across from you and you still want to pull it in. Now, before I just jump in and talk about, you know, why I find the 100 to 400 plenty acceptable for my type of work, especially with the 800 PF sitting in the background, I want to just talk really briefly about David Archer's 400 2.8 S lens with the built-in 1.4 teleconverter. You know, we have a look at this. This is in Costa Rica. He and I swapped lenses a fair bit. He shot with my 800, I shot with his 400. And this is a bird on a post with the 1.4 teleconverter that's built into the lens engaged. You just flip a lever and click, it becomes a 560 f4. And when you look at the sharpness and the way it renders the background, you know, there's a reason that lens costs $14,000 and weighs over 6 pounds. It's a hand-holdable beast of an image quality grabber for those who like to use long lenses and have deep pockets, or are out there working, creating enough income with their long lenses to justify that kind of a purchase and depreciation. You know, it's a really special lens that most of us can't really rationalize purchasing. David Archer's big thing that he loves to do is wildlife, and he likes to work in low-lit forest conditions, and that lens is amazing. You know, here's another shot with it, just special. You know, we zoom into 100%. Those are howler monkeys. It's a special, special lens. Now, that being said, as I said, I already have printed the label, and I'm going to be sending this 400 4.5 back. I don't have the 400 2.8, and I'm actually, for the type of work that I do, I'm plenty happy with this 100 to 400 S for f4 to 5.6 lens, and I'll show you why. You know, we talk about all these comparisons of image quality, and we look through these lenses and pixel peep. But what it really boils down to is what works best for you. And for me, you know, I do these big trips, landscape and travel. I'm hiking with my gear on my back. It's what I love to do, and I love the versatility that the 100 to 400 gives me. You know, here I am using that lens at 185 millimeters. I have no issue with the sharpness in this lens, wide open at f5 at its 185 millimeter setting. No issue at all with that. Look at the sharpness through this image. This is in Death Valley on our just spectacular workshop that we had there this last winter. You know, shooting wildlife with it. You know, here I am again, 135 millimeters in Glacier National Park on our trip where we were gearing up and just doing last minute scouting for next year's workshop there. No problem at all with the sharpness of this lens, and it's so versatile. You know, if I'd had a longer lens on right here, you know, there's no way I would have captured this image. These deer were too close. It just happened that I had that lens with me, and I was heading off to the restroom near Lake McDonald, and boom, you know, here is the best deer photo I've ever taken. It's plenty sharp. Here I am in Costa Rica with an iguana, and you know, there's no problem with its bokeh and sharpness if you use this lens properly, and it focuses really close. I'm out at 400 millimeters here. Here it is with the 1.4 teleconverter on it, shooting an osprey over Mount Hood during our workshop. Here we are shooting down the Columbia River Gorge just before sunset on a hazy night in the workshop. I'm able to go to 210 millimeters with it. I'm zooming in, I'm zooming out. It's all with one lens. I can easily throw that teleconverter on. It's so versatile. You know, I was photographing birds at Palouse Falls during our Palouse workshop this spring, and all of a sudden, you know, I put the 100 to 400 on, and all of a sudden I saw a commotion over by Palouse Falls, and boom, this scene happened. You know, 1 minute I'm at 100 millimeters, then I'm at 400 millimeters. Sharpness, not really an issue for me here. Here's a panorama I captured with that lens all the way back at 100 millimeters, camera vertical, the evening that we spent with our workshop here in the gorge. You know, just plenty sharp, plenty beautiful rendering, color rendition, versatile. Portraits, does a fine job. I love the way it blurs the background. Here I am at 125 millimeters with it at f4.5. You know, shooting into backlight, it does a masterful job, just like almost all the S lenses out there. Here I am at 400. This is from Steptoe Butte in the Palouse on a beautiful, beautiful sunset evening. You know, here's another one with the 1.4 teleconverter on it, but back down to 330 millimeters at f11. You know, plenty sharp. This is in the Palouse, just one of those beautiful farm scenes out there. You know, here's another one all the way out at 560 millimeters, just doing that extractive landscape, those details and beautiful light. And here's the full moon rising over Mount Hood last week with the Portland workshop. So, you know, when it all boils down, for me, because of the amount of travel and landscape that I do and not wanting to carry 7 lenses with me, I find this 100 to 400 has incredible quality and sharpness and versatility. And it works really well with this nice small 1.4 teleconverter. The image quality is plenty good enough for me. You know, because I have this, I just don't see a need for a dedicated 400. I actually got rid of the 500 PF, even though it is significantly sharper than this lens. This lens might be slightly sharper than the 500 PF, but again, it's when am I going to throw the 400 in the bag instead of throwing all that versatility from my 100 to 400 in the bag. I sold the 500 PF, I sold the 70 to 200 S 2.8 just because this lens has such great image quality and is so versatile. You know, my kit right now for the Z system that I carry all the time is the 14 to 24 2.8 with the HB97 hood and the 112 millimeter filters for it. I carry the 24 to 120 f4 lens with its 77 millimeter filter thread. I have a 77 to 112 millimeter magnetic case adapter to slap onto it to use those same filters with ease. I have this 100 to 400, which also takes that same 77 to 112 millimeter filter adapter. So just need one ring, one magnetic ring that mounts to the 77 millimeter lenses. Boom, that with the 1.4 teleconverter, and I have everything from 14 millimeters to 560 millimeters. And when I need more, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have this big 800 millimeter 6.3 that's hand holdable. That's not something that everyone needs. Not at all. You know, I would say there are plenty of you out there that have a 500 PF, and that same system with the 500 PF added in there and maybe an F-mount 1.4 teleconverter on that extremely sharp lens on the FTZ adapter is going to be really all that you need. You know, it gets you out to about 750 millimeters of reach. It's pretty awesome. So, you know, What are other kits? Who should buy this 400 f4.5? I think it's the people who shoot low-lit sports, the people who shoot low-lit scenes and need that f2.8 of the 70 to 200 millimeter lens. I think the 70 to 200 millimeter lens and this lens handle the 2.0 teleconverter pretty well. You have a slight reduction in image quality. You have a slightly slower catch on your autofocus in lower lit scenes. In great light, you got no problems whatsoever. But if you have, say, the 2.8 trinity of lenses, it's easy as using the 14 to 24, the 24 to 70, the 70 to 200, and then you have this as your longer lens with both the 1.4 teleconverter and the 2.0 teleconverter. You've got a heck of a kit right there. You know, that is a stellar, this is a stellar lens for those who just love the 70 to 200 and don't want the 100 to 400. You know, I think the travel and landscape photographer, the 24 to 120 and the 100 to 400 make a whole bunch of sense from a versatility standpoint. For those people who work in lower lit conditions, maybe you're a wedding photographer, maybe you're a sports photographer who does basketball or indoor sports. I think that 70 to 200, the 1.4 and the 2.0 teleconverter, along with this lens and the 1.4 and 2.0 teleconverter, are one heck of a power combo. You know, for those of you who have the 500 PF, it's longer and more awkward to work with the FTZ adapter, but that's a crazy sharp lens with even a little bit more reach than this. Do I think this handles nicer, adapts better to the Z system, and might be even slightly sharper? You know, it's a toss-up. That 500 is one of the sharpest lenses I've ever used. So, you know, for the same reason I'm not keeping my 500 PF, I'm not keeping this lens. The 100 to 400 does it for me. If I had my 500 PF still and was testing this lens, I don't know that I'd need to trade it in for a loss. I think the 500 is plenty sharp, and I don't mind the FTZ adapter. So that's my 2 bits for all of you. I think it's a spectacular lens that I just don't need in my particular kit. So you have any questions, you have any comments, throw them in this channel's comments. You can always email me. You can throw questions up for the office hours session that we're having. Again, September 6th, 10 a.m. Pacific. We're going to talk night photography and Milky Way. You get a question about the 400 4.5, feel free to throw it in there. We'll take night photography questions first, but any questions are free and welcome. You can sign up at hudsonhenry.com/office hours and leave us a question when you sign up. Be live on Zoom and YouTube. Again, I'm going to put a link to this lens. I think it's spectacular. I'll put a link to this lens. I'll put a link to the 100 to 400. I'll put a link to that really nice Kirk foot with the QD connector that fits either of those lenses. I'm going to put a link to the new Z9 hood from Hoodman. I really love this new Hoodman eyepiece hood. It is much nicer than the other one that I recommended as a hack earlier, and I'm very impressed with Hoodman for pricing it correctly. $30 is a great price point for it. So jump in and grab that before they're sold out. All right, everybody. So thanks so much for checking this out. Again, hit me up with any questions. I hope everyone's staying safe, staying creative. We'll see you next week.